Unless you've been hiding under a rock somewhere. Which in that case, I've got some horrible news to share with you about the year 2020. Then you've more than likely heard about AT&T's decision to release Zack Snyder's Justice League as a miniseries on its streaming service. Wish I had more time to go over what impacts this will have on the greater comic book movie genre as a whole and the corporate structure of Time Warner in general. But I do have time to go over the top 5 new gods I need to see in this upcoming miniseries. And yes, I'm aware that practically every character listed here was slated to premiere in the New Gods movie. But at the time of filming this video, that script is undergoing extensive rewrites, paving the possibility for us to see some of these characters in the upcoming Snyder Cut. So I'm Dylan from Clash of Myths, and here are the top 5 new gods I want to see in the upcoming Snyder Cut. But before we begin, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you how you can help starving, poverty-stricken, sickly, fictional children of the DC Cinematic Universe. I bet you didn't know that by simply clicking that like button, you can make all of their suffering go away. Alright. On with the show. Number 5, Steppenwolf. Now, I know what you're saying. But Dylan, Steppenwolf is already part of the Justice League movie. And to that I say, get out of my head! But for real, yeah, he was in Justice League and he was horrible. In the movie, Steppenwolf came off as this bland, ugly, tasteless character, completely devoid of any personal motivation. He's gathering the MacGuffins because it's what the script tells him to do. I mean, can you think of one personal reason Steppenwolf has to engage the League? Can you think of any personal reason why the League wants to stop him? Devoid of any personal motivation, we as the audience just can't relate to Steppenwolf. He comes off as this generic villain of the week. And it certainly doesn't help that the CGI makes him look just as bland as he behaves. But in the comic book, Steppenwolf is nothing of the like. Uncle the Darkseid, one of DC's biggest baddies, Steppenwolf is a fierce, immortal, experienced general who leads Darkseid's forces, and has proven his martial military might by holding his own in a one-on-one fight against Doomsday. That's right, the same Doomsday that killed Superman in Dawn of Justice. Ugh. Now if only they could kill my memories of Martha. What's that you said? People can rid themselves of that cheesy line? And all they have to do is hit that like button? Are you sure, Marcos? I mean, I don't know. I'm here on screen, I can't give it a try. Hey, why don't you let me know in the comments below whether or not it actually works? Anyway, they did my boy Steppenwolf wrong in the Justice League. He never should have been the big baddie. And you know, with the release of Snyder's deleted scenes, we can at least see for ourselves that he was never intended to be. So hopefully now in the Snyder Cut, they'll have the breathing room and space to make Steppenwolf the powerful, but ultimately an unimportant character he should be. Partway through Dawn of Justice, we were greeted with this weird scene where Barry Allen, the Flash, traveled back in time to warn Bruce Wayne of a coming disaster. We're also treated to brief scenes of barren, apocalyptic-like landscapes inhabited by parademons. Flash forward a few years, and with the release of Justice League, we suddenly have nothing. Apparently, this whole post-apocalyptic barren wasteland idea was dropped in favor of CGI over Henry Cavill's mustache. But with the upcoming Justice League miniseries, I expect we'll be revisiting this idea in order to treat it as the obvious foreshadowing the filmmaker intended it to be. Number 4, Darkseid. If you're unfamiliar, Darkseid is the ruler of an industrial dystopia called Apocalypse, which just so happens to look a lot like a city we see in Batman's vision during Dawn of Justice. Darkseid would make a much better villain than Steppenwolf. He's as strong as Superman, has access to the same technology that created Cyborg, and has a mind on par with that of Batman. Plus, he's the ruler of his own friggin' planet, and is motivated by a might makes right mentality that easily explains why he's invading Earth. Because, you know, it's there. Number 3, Highfather. It's a known law of the universe that every action has an equal and opposite reaction. In the multiverse of DC Comics, Highfather is Darkseid's benevolent reflection. He's the peace-loving, immortal ruler of New Genesis, who does everything in his power to stop Darkseid's genocidal rampages. Originally brothers, the two planetary leaders waged war against one another for eons, until a peace treaty was cemented between the two by the exchange of political prisoners, their own children. Highfather needs to be included in the upcoming Snyder Cut in order to fully flesh out Darkseid's motivation. If presented as an abstract invading force, Darkseid runs the risk of becoming just like Steppenwolf, this impersonal villain who fights the League simply because that's what he's needed for in the script. But with Highfather included, the Snyder Cut can contextualize Darkseid's motivations, allowing him to act more like a person. If it isn't clear by now, audiences crave the background stories for their favorite characters. And characters can become insanely popular just by presenting their background story in the film. Take Harley Quinn, for example. Margot Robbie does a great job playing the character, but it's the fact that they included her personal backstory of abuse with the Joker that really fleshed out her motivations and emotions and propelled her to her popularity. Including Darkseid without Highfather would make him stale and rob him of any personal motivation. It'd leave his character wanting. Number 2, Orion. As previously mentioned, Darkseid waged a series of wars against his nemesis, Highfather, until a peace treaty was cemented via the exchange of prisoners. Orion was of paramount importance to this treaty, because Orion is the biological son of Darkseid. Raised by the benevolent Highfather on New Genesis, Orion learned to harness Darkseid's inherited might towards protecting and defending the helpless. Orion is almost always depicted with his signature helmet and anti-gravity gun harness. And y'all, I can't lie, I don't know if an anti-gravity gun harness is the coolest piece of tech I've ever heard of, or the silliest. Orion needs to be included in the Snyder Cut for the same reasons as Highfather. His inclusion flushes out Darkseid and makes him more understandable to the audience. Think about Thanos from Infinity Wars and Thanos from Endgame. One is a deeply complex character driven by a misguided, self-righteous morality that the audience can understand, while at the same time disagree with. The other Thanos is a one-note character driven by a belief in his own destiny. He wants the Infinity Stones because he's seen a future version of himself already get them. Come on, that's weak sauce, motivationally speaking. Including Orion in the Snyder Cut allows us to explore a sliver of the inner workings of Darkseid, and will go a long way in providing a framework for the audience to conceptualize him. And number 1, Granny Goodness. So, call this choice personal bias, but to me there is no one more stylized in the New Gods saga than Granny Goodness. Say what you want about her power and influence when compared to beings like Darkseid or Highfather or any of the others. But if you are 90 kids like me, you still remember Granny Goodness's appearance in Superman the Animated Series, in Justice League Unlimited, or even Smallville. There's nothing scarier than the real-world brainwashing techniques used by cults and paramilitary organizations. I mean, all you have to do is watch Mandy with Nicolas Cage and you can see what I mean. Granny Goodness takes us to a whole new level by acting as though her torture and brainwashing is done out of love. She takes the purest emotions known to humans, amplifies her expression of it by behaving like a grandmother, dressing like a grandmother, and then twists it to her own evil ends. Plus, the way she met Darkseid is so cool. She was taken from her family, trained to be a soldier in Darkseid's army. She was given this dog to take care of. And as her final test, she was ordered to kill her dog, but instead she killed her trainer. When asked why she did this, she confessed to Darkseid that the dog was just more valuable than the trainer. Because although the dog was raised by Granny, it would ultimately obey Darkseid no matter what. The same can be said about this trainer. Darkseid tested this out and ordered the dog to kill Granny Goodness, which it certainly tried to, but failed. Impressed with the level of loyalty Granny was able to engender into the dog, He offered her leadership over all of his training facilities. Also, come on. She was modeled off of Phyllis Diller. There's no topping that. And there you have it. The top 5 new gods that should be included into Zack Snyder's Justice League miniseries. If there's anyone you think should have been included, leave a comment below. And if you enjoyed our show, if you like the content, consider watching another video. You can find one right here. Subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to stay up to date, and completely and utterly destroy that like button. I've been Dylan with Clash of Myths. Till next time.